I've got your energy stories for the first week of March 2026. Well, last week, Xcel Energy announced a deal to supply a new Google data center in Pine Island, Minnesota, with renewable energy. The utility said it was committed to ensuring that new large loads do not negatively affect other ratepayers, and that this arrangement would reflect that commitment. To make that happen, it will serve Google under a Clean Energy Accelerator Charge, CEAC, similar to a tariff arrangement under which Nevada's NV Energy plans to deliver 115 megawatts of clean enhanced geothermal power to Google in that state. In this case, the CEAC will result in development of 1,400 megawatts of wind and 200 megawatts of solar. It also provides for a $50 million investment towards Xcel's Capacity Connect program, a unique effort developed jointly with DER provider Spark Fund, in which it will develop and own up to 200 megawatts of distributed storage assets strategically placed across its service territory at local commercial, industrial, and institutional sites. Each site will include batteries providing between 1 and 3 megawatts of storage if it gets approved by regulators. Storage. Well, that is the last piece of this initial huge Google deal. To support its wind and solar and firm up the energy they produce, the project also includes something the world has never seen before: 300 megawatts of iron-air batteries to be manufactured by Form Energy, boasting 100 hours of duration, putting that project at 30 gigawatt hours. Let's just put that 30 gigawatt hour number in perspective. In 2025, per the just-released Solar Energy Industries Association and Benchmark Minerals Report, the U.S. installed over 57 gigawatt hours and 27 gigawatts of nameplate capacity. Two things stand out in the comparison here. First, the average duration of batteries installed across the U.S. last year was only 2 hours. So the Form project, the duration will be 50 times the annual average. Second, and most impressive, this single project represents a little over 50% of the entire battery energy storage installed across the country last year. That's phenomenal. Form Energy CEO Matteo Hardemilo left Tesla years ago, and he set up a team at Form in 2017 to create longer duration storage capabilities. After exploring many materials, he settled on iron, which, when it oxidizes, another word for rusting, releases energy. Iron's abundant and it's cheap. So the company set about testing and validating its technology, and it was a long time coming. In 2020, I was excited to see Form announce a 1 megawatt, 150 megawatt hour project with Great River Energy in Minnesota, because it felt like there was a there. That project then got drawn out, although construction finally began last year in Cambridge, Minnesota, with the project now at 1.5 megawatts and 150 megawatt hours, as Form eventually settled on 100 hours as its sweet spot. The company subsequently signed two 10 megawatt, 1,000 megawatt hour deals with Xcel for utilities in Minnesota and Colorado, a 15 megawatt, 1,500 megawatt hour deal with Georgia Power, and a 5 megawatt, 500 megawatt deal with the California Energy Commission. It looked to be on its way. But it still needed a factory and to prove it could actually manufacture products. So Form eventually bought and rehabbed an old steel mill in Wyerton, West Virginia, with a plan to create annual manufacturing output of 500 megawatts and 50,000 megawatt hours when fully built out. This Google deal will then take 60% of that capacity. One of the biggest questions, in addition to the company's ability to manufacture a reliable product, which is now proven to Xcel after manufacturing something on the order of 100,000 electrodes, the anodes and the cathodes, meaning it's run 60 miles of electrode materials through the plant. Well, the other question was whether the market would be able to embrace a new technology with one significant drawback. Unlike lithium-ion batteries that typically operate at 90% round-trip efficiencies, RTEs, losing 10% of the energy during each cycle, or pumped hydro that often sits in the mid-70% RTE range, Form has an abysmal 40% RTE. Singer Neil Young once sang that rust never sleeps. Perhaps, but doesn't appear too energetic in this case with these low RTEs. Nonetheless, 100 hours of duration somewhat compensates for that drawback, especially if this technology can be delivered reliably and at low cost and in enormous quantity. Then it has the chance to become a proverbial game changer in today's so-called energy transition that relies greatly on variable wind and solar to decarbonize the grid. 100 hours gets you to dispatchability and firm capacity that the grid sorely needs in its quest to address the critical issue of resource adequacy, especially with the apparently insatiable demand from new data centers. Part of my job as an author, keynoter, and educator is to look at the technologies of tomorrow and speculate where they might take us. Given that role, I've been excited about Form Energy for some time. And in 2024, I began including a slide showing Form Energy in some of my keynotes and workshops related to resource adequacy and data center loads. I even had conversations with members of the Form team where they diplomatically indicated that data load was of great interest. But then, even as forecasted data load soared, there were crickets from the company, and I began to fear that perhaps I was a little over the tips of my skis on this one, speculating about something that would eventually prove to have no substance. Most of the time, I guess right. But I was beginning to feel some unease on this one, so it was with some relief when I read the announcements last week from Xcel, Google, and Form. Now the critical questions. In the face of this enormous new electricity demand from data centers and a growing need to firm up renewables, the question is whether Form Energy can deliver to the broader market at an attractive price point and whether it can scale to the gigawatts of capacity and hundreds of gigawatt hours of energy storage capability needed in the very near future. In the meantime, I'm brimming with gratitude on the news of this deal, as at least for this week, it's kept me from looking like a fool. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.